The surprise horror mega hit Five Nights at Freddy's has spawned many sequels and a huge rabid fan base since its initial launch just a little while back. But there's a brand new game in the series called Sister Location that has just hit Steam. But does this game scare up a good time? Or has the hype train on Five Nights at Freddy's finally derailed? Being a huge horror fan, I have been very critical of the Five Nights at Freddy's series over the years, but I have always had a respect and admiration for its fanbase because they are so passionate about this series. Now, jumping into Sister Location, I have to say, I was shocked. For the first time since the original Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like there has been an evolution to the format here with Sister Location. While this may turn some of its longtime fans away as the gameplay has changed, I think this was a much needed evolution that will definitely appeal to a few new gamers who maybe haven't checked out the series before. It's still extremely reliant on the jump scare, but it changes up the gameplay from night to night to make things interesting and new as you're going through. The biggest and best change in the game, though, is that you're not stuck in one spot just managing security monitors and opening and closing doors. You now get to move about the facility. It kind of initiates different minigames, but it's different minigames and different ways to play them each and every night as you're progressing. Sister Location also provides the most story we've seen in any of the previous Five Nights at Freddy's game, which is something that I definitely liked. Yes, there is still plenty to dig into as far as lore and stuff that you have to kind of decipher on your own, and plenty of fan theories can still evolve from the game. But at the same time, there's more story given to you in the game that I think will just help that lore evolve. The gameplay, though, is still rather simplistic, a couple of buttons on the keyboard as well as, of course, the mouse movement. But because it's constantly changing from night to night, it doesn't get old. You get to actually work on some of the animatronics, get a better look on the inside of them. You'll also get stuck inside of a Springtrap suit and have to manage the springs so that they don't end up activating and killing you, as well as, of course, going through hallways and having the flashlights to keep some of the animatronics at bay. The game also features a good amount of humor that I actually thought was pretty funny and enjoyable, which kind of surprised me. It does poke fun a little bit at not only the lore, but lovingly pokes fun a little bit at the fan base. You have a keyboard at the beginning of each night, you put in your name for it, and it's kind of activate the AI that's talking to you throughout each night. But each night, you put in the name and it errors out and ends up giving you a kind of a goofy, fun name, and things change up because of it. While there's definitely still plenty of the horror elements, and there's some really dark stuff, I think even more so in this one, as far as dark imagery goes, than necessarily some of the past games, but that added little bit of humor made the game even more enjoyable to me. One of the things that also has elevated some of my like for the past Five Nights at Freddy's games was, of course, the introduction of new animatronics, and a couple of the ones added here I really like. I like seeing the full Funtime Foxy, which is kind of like the full version of what we saw from Mangle in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, of course, I'm not an expert at the series, so I apologize if I'm screwing up who is who, but I also absolutely love the new addition of Baby the Clown. She is easily now probably my favorite animatronic in the entire series. From the technical side of things, there were a few problems here and there. There was a glitch I ran into not once, but actually 4 times on night 2, where I was unable to get out from underneath the desk after initiating both sets of the potential jump scares. This was something that a lot of people are having problem with, which I'm sure will be fixed relatively soon, but it was a minor annoyance, as when you exit out of the game, you have to start the night all over again. But finally, after doing it 4 times on my 5th attempt, I was able to get through. I was already kind of annoyed at that point, but quickly that annoyance subsided as I was making it to day 3, day 4, and day 5, and continued to enjoy the game from there, and I didn't really run into any other problems outside of that initial night 2 issue. Now, as far as the length goes, with all these Five Nights games, it comes down to how quickly you're able to adapt and master each and every one of the mechanics. And because there's a whole bunch of different mechanics thrown into this one, it may take you longer than any of the previous titles in the series. Like I said at the beginning of this review, I have been very critical of the Five Nights at Freddy's series in the past. Being a huge horror fan, I always look with a very critical eye at horror games, especially ones that end up becoming as popular as something like FNAF has. The thing is, though, I loved this game. I loved a lot of what it provided. Sure, it's still extremely reliant on jump scares, which honestly don't do anything for me. They don't creep me out or don't scare me. But The atmosphere that was provided as far as the tension that would build, moving from room to room, having to make sure I'm flashing the light from the animatronics, they added more tension than I have felt in previous Five Nights games. So I have to say that this game did things that the previous games were unable to do for me as a longtime horror fan. However, the game is still far from perfect. It does have a couple of technical issues and bugs that have been seen in some of the previous games of the series in Scott Cawthorne's work. At the same time, though, I feel like I can recommend this one a bit more to outsiders who didn't like the previous games or don't get the hype or hated the series. I feel like this one is a bit better as far as the other horror elements go than previous games. It is available now on Steam for $7.99, and I'm going to be giving the game a 7 out of 10. Being someone who doesn't really get into the series all that much, and a couple of titles in the past I really absolutely couldn't stand, I'm surprised I'm giving it that high, but honestly, Sister Location actually was really enjoyable. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.